Guess I finally get to cast Kiyj, who I know very little about. Pretty sure I've cast him once before, but not so much that I remember. It's a round of 16 match, so this is close to the qualifying match. Literally, whoever wins this will be in a best of 5 qualifying match. But a ZvZ can be a very scary game. Very scary matchup to play in a single elimination tournament. In the top left of Death Aura is SortOf. In the bottom right as the red Zerg, he is Kiyj, or Kiyj, or Kiyj. I don't know, we're gonna go with Kiyj. Probably. What? We got like a 17 hatch actually versus a 16 hatch. Interesting. Most Zerg players have just accepted that 16 hatch is the way to go. In what, ZVP and ZvZ, but I guess Kiyj doesn't feel like it. He's gonna go for a... Okay, alrighty then. So, I was about to say, oh, well, I guess whatever, it doesn't really matter, but I guess that is actually kind of... Maybe it's indicative of this build. Maybe it's what he does in this specific build. Just get a third hatchery at the front. Believe it or not the first time I've seen this. So what it can lead into is just a lot of lings being pumped out, because you get a 3 hatch, but the third hatch isn't quite as vulnerable as it would be if it was, like, you know, on the base itself. So, the problem that I usually see with it, though, is that it's, like, about as obvious as you can make it. What else are you using a third hatch for that's not in place to mine, if not to just make a bunch of units and attack? So, well, we'll see what his plan is. I don't want to speak for him, because it'll be something really different. But sort of scouts this with the Overlord, and really shouldn't actually have that strong of a reaction initially. Like, you can still even try and get your own third hatch, as long as you get a well-timed Baneling Nest. But the safer call would be go for, like, Baneling Nest first. Although, he's not getting speed, actually. Whoa! Okay, this seems very dangerous. Well, maybe he's played against this build or this style before and has actually seen it not do the Ling all-in that I was talking about. And if that's the case, then so be it. He's gonna get away with some greed. But, I wouldn't have expected this to just be for the macro. Apparently it is. At least initially. So I was going to go for a Roach Warren and a safe wall-off. So in that way, that makes sense. The safe wall-off portion, the 2-base Roach portion, that makes sense. You can get a wall-off before they send Lings across the map. But I just was surprised to see the fast layer. I was actually kind of fearful he was going for 2-base Muta, if I'm being honest. But I just add the Roach Warren, add the Evolution Chamber. That makes more sense. And then Kiyj goes for a lair himself. Evolution Chamber was built but not being used, so it looks like this guy's gonna actually go for a Spire. Interesting. So, priority being on getting the saturation of the 2 bases first and foremost. So it's like a safe way to go on quote-unquote 2-base Spire. But why not just get a third hatch? I'm actually, I don't know. The third hatch is less safe, sure, but not to a degree that we see a lot of, like, game over mans because someone gets a third hatch. That's literally the way ZvZ plays out, is get the third hatch. And then if they do something unique, that's on them, but it's definitely defendable. It helps out more in the longer-term macro game, but alright. Pass your third hatch from Kiyj. Didn't really give him a boost in economy, nor was it used to give him a boost of larva. In fact, he can't even use all of his larva right now, so I feel like that, above anything else, kind of proves my point about it being weird. But he is also investing into +1 melee and a Spire, so that's taking away some of his resources. SortOf, does he anticipate this? He's also getting his own Spire, while still actually legitimately getting +1 missile and roach speed. So it's not a complete fake out, but he is also getting a Spire, and that should be problematic for Kiyj. He doesn't really know that's the case. No Overseer being thrown in on either sides. Sort of seeing a lair, but not the Spire. Yeah, it's a bit weird. What's weirder is that while Kiyj might be... Well, actually, he's faster than sort of Spire. Huh, okay. The weirdest thing about this for me is that SortOf is going to have to choose if he wants to commit to mutas or not. And if he commits to mutas, he's not really going to appreciate having only roaches to play around with, because he didn't get speed for his lings. And obviously he doesn't have +1 for his lings either, so he would lose the ling war, he'd lose the ground war. And if you're going to dedicate to mutas, you don't want to be building roaches that are expensive and slow. So I was scared actually initially for Kiyj, but just it's kind of my bias of being like, well, I know SortOf, and I know he has good plans, and you know I don't know this other guy, but actually rethinking this. Oh, you know what? Yeah, Corruptors. Okay. Kind of forgot that was an option. SortOf going for the Corruptor Roach response to mutas is apparently pretty strong in the right situation. We have seen it work out, but I do think that there is a certain amount of momentum that can be gained from the muta player that makes the Corruptor response obsolete. And this type of game, I actually truly wonder what's going to work out. The Corruptors will win this war. That's not what I'm questioning. It's more about can SortOf get a third base reliably mining and then a fourth base reliably mining against the style of play. That's the question mark for me. And we'll see. Kiyj having to retreat, doesn't get the third hatchery, gets it low but not dead. Working on that +1 missile, cancels Baneling Nest, maybe? Is that what it was? Realizing he won't be able to use Banelings in this game much anyways. He could, you know, you see that happen with the Stylo, but I think he's more so focused on getting as many mutas and as many lings out as possible. Temporary supply block is a little bit problematic as the roaches of SortOf go across the map. If he had more lings out and not supply block with 6 overlords on the way, this isn't so bad. But even with that +1 melee, the +1 missile of SortOf is really winning out. And he has just busted on through here, so... Never mind. Alright. Okay. That's how this goes. Probably the swiftest way I've seen Roach Corruptor win a game. Usually it's a little more complicated, it's a little bit weirder. They're on the defensive a little bit more, and then it's like, oh, can the Zerg player, the Ling player, win out with their mobility? But this time, it was literally just like, I made the counter to both your units, and you did not have enough units. So, this is apparently where Roach Corruptor is the strongest against the muta player. Now I get it. I've been told by certain other Zergs that, like, you know, yeah, it's a really strong counter, and I've witnessed it in, like, 15, 20-minute games and been like, oh, yeah, okay, it's good, but, like, is it super strong? You ever show me this game first and foremost, you'd be like, oh, yeah, it's super strong. Fuck. SortOf is just bowling over this guy. Kiyj doesn't want to tap out of the game, but he is absolutely dead. Has no offensive... Oh, my God, he so close killed this hatchery. Jeez Louise. He's got nothing going on offensively. Purely defense, and even then, he has to consistently run away from the Corruptors. Down to 19 workers, about to lose his own third hatchery. Yeah. I learned something today. If Kiyj had only lost 20 drones, I'm like, maybe. You know, the power of the muta comeback, the mutas and lings. The lings get into a main and a natural, the mutas take out this third hatch. Okay, yeah, comebacks can happen. But he lost 40 drones. And still has to worry about the Corruptor numbers, so it's not those situations where you try and find the lack of queens or a lack of spore crawlers. He does just tap that third hatch, easy peasy. Grabs an Overlord, he just slightly faster than those Corruptors, so only one of them died, so that was a very good snipe, but they cannot take on that many Corruptors. So they are forced to retreat. Thank you, Diggle Duggle, for the gifted sub. Much appreciated. roaches sometimes can take on corruptors. Their glaive worms are considerable, but the just the base armor of a corruptor is usually a bit better. And there you go. Roaches came in with the corruptors that time, and Kiyj realized I can't take them on. So gives up after the second run by of roaches, after the second, third, fourth run by of roaches. GG. Sort of really showing how powerful that response can be to fast mutas. In so many other games, it's a lot more awkward, there's a lot more flexibility, there's a lot more momentum from the Ling muta player. And in that game, it never really got started. Plus a couple of macro mistakes from Kiyj. That big supply block certainly didn't help his initial defense. If he had 30 more Lings, then those roaches probably get surrounded well enough that they die. But he was supply blocked. And then income blocked. And then I still don't really know about the third hatch play. I see people experiment with it. And I'm like, well, there's got to be something people are figuring out. But even when you talk through, you can talk yourself through. You can be like, well, that means they have more larvae. That means they have a partial wall, so they can kind of play more defensive. That means maybe, better at hiding things as well with that wall. It's like, yeah, okay. But then what we see is, like, in a more normal game, is that they don't really get any leads from it. Whether it's up against, a regular third hatch Ling player or against a 2-base roach player. That sort of was. Always nice to learn new things, though. Always nice to see new ways of playing out a matchup that sometimes is a little bit tired. Not because it's literally 1 or 2 builds, but just because it happens so often. ZvZ has a lot of choices and a lot of styles, honestly, and it's not a bad matchup at all, but it just happens so damn often. In the top right of Everdream, we've got Cosmos Esports, SortOf. And in the bottom left, for Clan GP, he is Kiyj. Not getting his muta style to work out very well there. I want to see if he does a 3-hatch thing again. We might see a different response, different use of 3-hatch from Kiyj too, if SortOf doesn't go for a 2-base build. I think the other tricky thing about the 3rd hatch is that it is so easily scouted. It's not like hiding an evolution chamber in your main base. The 3rd hatch is scouted by the Overlord every time, and fairly quickly too. Depending on the map, I guess. Yeah, it's like literally the first thing they see with the Overlords. They're like, well, if there's a hatch there, there's a hatch in the natural. SortOf isn't gonna get me, isn't gonna give Kiyj a chance to go for the 3rd hatch. So I won't get a chance to see if it could be anything else. SortOf going for early pool, early gas. It's gonna be bringing the aggression to Kiyj first. If he'd only gone for the pool, I'm just like, oh, he's afraid of like the cheese that can happen on Everdream. But grabbing that gas as well. SortOf's gonna want to take the reins on this one. Kiyj going for the setup of a potential wall, should he need it, against the early rush, the 12 pull with the Lings and drones pulled. Doesn't necessarily, it's not something you want to do against this, though, what SortOf is doing. You don't really want to build up a whole huge wall against that. SortOf is committing, but it's not like the most all-in thing he could ever do. Pulling drones would be the most all-in thing he could do, and that's not something you do with this build. There's still 2 guys in gas, so gonna be a pretty swift Baneling Nest follow-up. Trying to avoid the Overlords right now. The Overlord of Kiyj is, like, literally now seeing no creep spread, so it'd be like, wait a second. You just compare it to your own hatchery, and you're like, wait a second. So, of course, you know that it's a later hatchery. Question is, how much later? Is it a pool later or pool gas later? We know the answer. And SortOf is backing us up with that Baneling Nest like I was talking about. And I have enough for even just a few Banelings. Automatically places him with higher tech than his opponents. He also is going to have speed for a long time over his opponent. It's going to be tricky for Kiyj, but Kiyj knows that something is up. And he's got to take it seriously. Queen's on the ramp, Spine Crawler on the high ground. Probably wants to move more over here, if I had to guess. He's going to try and get a second scout. Nicely timed, really. Sees the speed kick in, but most importantly sees the amount of lings. Sort of, though, he was hiding those lings off to the side because he wanted to make them in the Baneling, get those over there as fast as possible, as opposed to showing lings and then making the Banelings. Very appropriate response here from Kiyj. Once again, blocking that high ground ramp. Third Queen going to try and tuck herself into a corner. Spinecrawler has repositioned in the nick of time to help out. It's almost certain the Queens will go... Nah, actually, maybe not. I mean, if you really just tried to kill the Queens, it's almost certain they die. But now that they aren't being targeted, they're going to have transfuses. And this is not working out so well for SortOf, to be honest. Speed is also kicked in for the red Zerg. 3 Queens still alive, all with transfuse available, and a Spinecrawler on the high ground now being moved to the low ground. Kai's response just about perfect. Kind of giving a clinic on how to defend what SortOf just did there, and SortOf is forced to consider other options. Starts building drones, is up against other Banelings, so he no longer has that tech advantage. Gonna try for one more shot to break the Zerg. He's gonna get that one Queen. Is this one... Oh, did not quite have a transfuse. I thought all of them had a transfuse. I guess they used it on the hatchery. Which did get quite low, so probably better they did. One Queen goes down, that sucks, but that is not what SortOf was looking for with the build. A little behind on drones, and now very behind on that lair tech. Kiyj probably just going straight up to the Spire, and in this case, gonna have a much better time with that Spire too. SortOf no Roach follow-up all in. No Spire of his own going to be on the way anytime soon. SortOf actually a little concerned. You know, he's either figuring, okay, I've locked him out of the third hatch, so I'm okay. And he's right, he's okay for now. Or he's got to start figuring, wait a second, he's probably going up to a Spire. Jay, I think you would know. He wants to get the scout, of course, but I think you would just have to start accepting that. Spire or Nidus Worm, but oh, Ling gets in the main base. Not gonna be able to see the lair. I don't think it did. No, but you gotta figure it's a lair. And so often it is a Spire. So SortOf, what's the plan here? I got the 32 drones, 3 gases, no lair though, just a Roachborn on the way. I think he's gonna try and just bust his opponents before the mutas come into play. But I'm worried about the timing here. I am worried about the timing. 9 roaches being made now. They'll still have to make their way across the map. Slow. These will not have speed. And it's not like they're going to be terribly supported by Lings on the ground. Kiyj could make even a handful of Banelings to really help here. Okay, that was a poor trade for Kiyj. Already has 3 Banelings. 5 Banelings, actually, so that's a decent amount there. SortOf's gonna have to do a little bit of the fancy footwork with the Lings to let them be a part of this all-in. Don't let them just get bopped by the Banelings. The Lings can add a lot of extra damage when the Roaches start getting picked off. Lings coming through, that's what really complicates matters. They're the units that really get into the drone lines and start getting those high kills. Kiyj knows the all-in is on the way. It's all about defending. 4 Spinecrawlers here, about to help out the very initial one, which is doing like a dance? What the hell are you doing? Why is it like cackling? That's weird. There are the Roaches, and where are the Lings of Kiyj? They're on the other side of the map. Bit of a risky choice, a very risky choice. Ban's already being made. This is not going to work out, and Kiyj only has 2 muted. Spinecrawlers are not done. Uh-oh, 1 Spinecrawler about to go down. Transfuse actually on the hatchery because it was about to be done. It does still get killed. I didn't even recognize that SortOf was targeting that. Damn. That was a bit of a risky decision from SortOf, but it was so low that it was probably the right decision. If it was at all healthier, I don't know about wasting shots on it, but it died. And that might be enough. That is a big question mark, though. The problem with just getting the hatchery is that you have to just give up control when you're up against a muta player. The idea is more to both kill the hatchery and kill 20, 25 drones. You might have killed the 1 hatchery, but believe it or not, Kiyj already had a 3rd hatch on the way, so he still is mining off of 2 bases, and SortOf's all-in was not impactful enough, in my opinion. We'll see if he can make some magic happen. 1-1 is on the way from his evolution chambers that he made a wall for against that run-by. But SortOf was, I mean, his opener didn't really work out as well as he was hoping for, and now his follow-up really hasn't worked out. So I think he is just screwed. Mutas have so much comeback potential. Especially when your opponent's tech is very low, when they're just working with Queens and Spore Crawlers. The mutas are gonna literally take control over the map. Kill all these overlords, kill any army coming across the map. Well, at least try to. Lings do bypass to the north. And they're going to be able to find weaknesses. They're going to be finding weak spots, queens out of place without transfuses. And it's going to take a long time for SortOf to get up to a decent queen count or hydralisks. Especially because his lair still isn't all the way, so... SortOf... Is he just forgetting his lair? Like, he has resources for it. Because he's supply blocked, he can't be building much else. I guess the kind of complicated thing is that he needs queens. And building a lair reduces one queen production. Well, Muta does get tagged by that last Spore Crawler shot, so... At least that's going for SortOf. There, finally a lair is on the way. Kiyj might not look like he's winning so hardcore right now. The supplies don't look that bad. But he is getting such a good amount of time to freely build mutas. And 8 mutas aren't that scary. 16 mutas are much scarier, especially when you don't have mobile defense against them. And queens aren't exactly mobile defense. Not exactly. SortOf, by going for 1-1 here, he does have this option of just steamrolling his opponent on the ground and forcing the mutas to stay at home, which has happened before. He's not doing it, though. Not yet. Kiyj even building Banelings offensively can try and control these types of run-bys. He's going to try and find him out. This is something that's the only option SortOf has right now, is just try and buy time. Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. Carapace saving a lot of Lings right there. But, whew, he almost ran right into those. Damn. SortOf just going over to the right side, I guess. Yeah, he still, like, the problem is he wants the Lings to be on Kiyj's side of the map, taking engagements. But he also needs them back at home, stopping Kiyj's Lings from getting into his own main. Like, these Lings have such a job to do. They have multiple jobs to do. He's kind of split them up here, so they are finally getting into that main base. Queen tries to help out, but she can't block an entire ramp by herself. Queens in the main, honestly, are tanky enough to buy enough time. One goes down, but no, drones have gone down here. Could be different on the left side. Third hatchery not going to be under attack. 2 spine crawlers aren't going to last that long. And this is the time that SortOf needed. It's not getting much damage done, but it is bringing the mutas back home, so SortOf can reposition Spore Crawlers, add on Spore Crawlers. He's going to dive towards the Infestation Pit, try and get some fungals out, and then maybe eventually get up to those Hydralisks. I mean, the fact that he actually got a third base up and running against the much faster lair tech of his opponent, I mean, that was step 1, and it's a difficult step to achieve sometimes, but he's done it. Unfortunately, the muta count might be a little too high. 20 mutas taking on 3 Spore Crawlers. 4th one not quite done. Queens weren't quite in position. They can't transfuse buildings, but that's a lot of queens. So Kiyj will grab those Spore Crawlers and be done with it. Oh, no. You can see SortOf was purely depending on the Lings on the ground to buy time and cause chaos. And as soon as those were dead, he was like, yep, that's it. All right, that's cool. GG. Last map's gonna be on Pillars of Gold. It would be a bit of an upset for SortOf not to qualify today. And this isn't even a qualifying match. He beats Kiyj. He still has to face one more guy. Either Battlebee or Damaga to qualify. I do think he's gonna qualify. I do. But yeah, it's still scary that he's in the last possible qualifier. Instead of qualifying through one of the first 2 like he was, supposed to. The dream of the Roddy qualification dies to Poppy Joe. No awkward planning having to be done. Last time Roddy got into a qualifying match, you actually, you know, apparently I think it was for a WCS like 2 or 3 years ago. There was actually a bit of like, not exactly reprimanding, but basically like, hey, can you not qualify because we want you to cast? Anyways. Third game. I'm going to wait to see if there's a 12 pool, and then I'm going to be right back. Alright, no 12 pool. All tied up, 1-1. The bottom left, it is SortOf. In the top right, as the red Zerg, it is Kiyj. Gonna follow someone's camera and be right back. Okay. Nothing interesting happening. Maybe a slight difference of builds again. Like literally a drone off. Does Kiyj do the weird third hatch thing again? Doesn't seem like it. Alright. Tons of scouting being done, being had from the overlords, and now we should see third hatcheries going down as they both recognize, hey, doing the same thing. Samesies. The third hatch is where things get maybe a little bit more interesting. Who builds a baneling nest, who doesn't, who makes lings, who doesn't. Both of them having overlords over the third hatch of their opponent to make sure everything is a-okay, no secret 2-base ling all-ins being prepared. And both of them setting lings across the map to each other exactly for that reason. If there's no third hatch, these lings would be scouting the main right now and being like, hey, how many lings do you have? But with the third hatch, why not just attack each other? Why not? Both of them going for baneling nests, so no skipping right into the roaches. And now, how many lings are being made? Whoa! 4 lings of Kiyj forcing a cancel, whereas the 2 lings of SortOf not able to do the same. That is kind of a big deal. That is 25, 30-second difference now on their hatcheries. I mean, maybe not the biggest deal. It's maybe like 1 more round of larva inject, if inject is even immediate, right? Because that's, I mean, a queen's actually over there injecting, so I think it's literally like 2 more larvae. So actually not really that big of a deal. Because they also aren't mining enough yet to really make use of a third hatch. SortOf would love to get this hatchery killed, though, because then it would be like a minute plus of a hatchery difference. But not going to happen. They both are making a decent number of lings. Evolution Chamber comes down first for SortOf. I think it's going to be for that +1 missile. And then for Kiyj. So both going into roaches. Perhaps, see if anything trickier happens. A bit more focus on the third hatch defense and offense. Both of them trying to get something done. But Kiyj, the one with banelings, already defensively set up, and SortOf a little less so. Didn't really have a whole lot to defend that, but Kiyj, I think, respecting that banelings are probably on the way, that more lings are on the way, just backs away, backs to home. Ooh, not +1 starting up, but rather a lair. There is the trick. You start the evolution chamber, you start up +1, exactly like Kiyj is doing. You don't have to worry about it. It comes down at a very nice time. If they are about to attack you, that roach horn comes down faster, completes faster. You can build roaches, still A-okay. But to go for a lair first? I mean, that +1 could have been theoretically 100 faster, right? Because the lair cost. If they're doing their builds in an absolutely perfect way and whatever, but lair first. I mean, that roach warren going to be able to produce roach speed faster for SortOf, and you could just maybe use it to control the game. Or even do pretty fast +1 attack that actually has roach speed with it to reinforce. But I'm still suspicious it's going to be a Spire. Ah, he's building Qual Overlords, so... Oh, +1 attack then, right? With roach speed? Gonna have to wait for a bit more gas. So for still a bit more in the droning phase, Kiyj with no lair whatsoever. So it's pretty typical to see +1 go down first, and then roach warren and then lair. That's fine. No lair whatsoever. Kiyj's actually gonna go for an all-in. Kiyj going for the hatch-based all-in here on Pillars of Gold to try and knock SortOf out of the brackets. It's a dangerous thing to do. No, he's not gonna go for it. He does build a decent amount of roaches, though, so I wouldn't be surprised if SortOf read into this as an all-in. But Kiyj actually starts up a lair behind it and more drones. SortOf mayhaps will over-defend, but here's the thing. I think over-defending wouldn't even be that bad. Hello? Hello? Ah! Okay, there we go. Over-defending wouldn't be that bad, just because he would be building so many roaches with roach speed so much faster that he could maybe just probably, he could probably just counter. And then Kiyj would have to make a bunch of roaches and stop droning, and there's, thus the back and forth of a ZvZ continues. But I actually really like what Kiyj has done here. Kiyj, like, showed this and was like, boo! And SortOf was like, ah! And SortOf, well, he pretty quickly realized it was just a fake. It was just a guy in a robe or a bedsheet. There you go. He still spent time building roaches and not building drones. So he is down by 11. His best upgrade right now is that roach speed, which should not be underestimated when it comes to reinforcing an attack. But now we would have to decide, do I either just catch up on drones, just try and catch up on drones, or do I attack? And it looks like he is choosing to catch up on drones. So not too long of a difference there on the income. But Kiyj feels like he just got a little bit ahead there. It's kind of by showing that, got a little bit ahead. It's gonna fall a little bit behind. SortOf makes some more drones. Actually, I'm surprised Kiyj hasn't made 5 more drones to saturate this third. I mean, he did see the roaches finally move across the map, but nothing's really reinforcing, so... Maybe now it's his turn to take the threat a little too seriously. Well, 5 drones maybe isn't the biggest difference. Perhaps most importantly, it's a Spire play. And that, oh, it was going to be a problem. Uh-oh. Spire could be a target for these roaches in the main. Roach speed coming actually into really good use here as they bypass all of the army very quickly. Doesn't go for the Spire, but hey, who got the scout first? Kiyj, I don't think, has scouted SortOf Spire. There it is. And so he's getting +1 flyer first. Where SortOf could go into +1 carapace. Kiyj now down by 10 workers overall, because he did get behind by 5. But he is ahead in army, so it's his turn to go across the map and try and attack. SortOf not going to go for the carapace upgrade, rather right into that +1 flyer. I really question how much they're going to dedicate to mutas, truly. It might even be better for not dedicating to the mutas and not dedicating to the upgrades and just letting it go. I don't know. Kiyj is going to attack with his mutas and his roaches all together. And SortOf was not quite prepared for it. He might have a few mutas and he might have an upgrade eventually, but that's not really mattering so much right now. He's down by 30 supply, loses control of his 4th base. Kiyj with a pretty sweet attack, even getting some of the mutas hit by his corrosive biles. SortOf is not quite winning that air war, and he's also definitely not winning the ground war. Kiyj might just be doing it here. His +2 is finishing up as well. That was something that SortOf had for the engagement, and now he has Spineclaws on his side as well, so it's not quite game over. But I think that was more awkward than it should have been. Yes, the ground war, I guess, was going to go in Kiyj's favor. He had more units there. But the fact that SortOf's Mutas didn't win the air war is a bit surprising. Maybe they came out kind of one at a time, and maybe, you know, less because he invested into +1 missile. And they also got hit by corrosive bios, which just isn't supposed to happen, but thankfully the Queens came forward, started helping them out, and Kiyj did take a little bit of a break from building Mutas. Now he's gone back into them, and he's also getting his +1 flyer weapons, but I'm really surprised no one got for Carapace. The trick about Carapace is, while it's more effective, it also costs more. And we're talking about some pretty scary decision-making that can come down to a 50-50 difference of cost when you're, you know, defending and trying to hit a timing attack and all that good stuff. So I guess both of them decided not to invest in the +1 Carapace first. It was a little too much of a stretch for their economy. Go for the +1 instead. SortOf now goes for Carapace and will definitely have the upgrade lead. Again, question is either one of them really dedicated to this? Like, SortOf builds +1 Carapace and then gets a Hydralisk Den. So, like, are you gonna actually do the muted thing? I guess it's an option now. It's an option. Bit of a weird game. Mutas definitely being made for Kiyj, though. There was that stop point where he was going for the roach attack, so he stopped making them, but then he pretty quickly went back into making them, and he has not stopped since then. So 24 Mutas up against the sub-20 of SortOf, but SortOf was banking a lot of cash, specifically to make a bunch of Hydras. And those Hydras should be able to rip and tear through those Mutas, as well as theoretically have a very strong backline for the Roach Wars. But I say theoretically because SortOf still needs more Roaches to protect said Hydras. And they aren't here yet. Hatchery looks like it's one thing going to down. That was misplaced anyways, so I mean, okay, second chance to put that down. Hydras are ripping and tearing through those Mutas. A bit of an overcommit there from Kiyj, especially because while this was happening, Ling's got into the 4th base and 3rd base and entirely ransacked the drone line. Kiyj now down to 40 workers, having lost a decent chunk of his Mutas too. That was an over-invested attack, as well as losing the economy back at home. Double over-investment. Kiyj is now looking quite bad in this game, but maybe don't underestimate Mutas. He might have lost quite a few, like 8 or something in that engagement. Thought he could take on the Hydras, I guess, and then realized he couldn't. But he might have lost that many. He still has a very decent amount, and at least +1 flyer is now done. SortOf might have +1 flyer Carapace, but that doesn't matter. That might have actually just been queued and then forgotten about. SortOf has a 4th base still up and running because he had a 5th so much faster. And he can now place this one down actually on location, in the correct location. Kiyj, he's going to control the map a little bit, but if it's such a big difference, you know, if his opponent was only on 3 bases, I think he'd be feeling a lot better. Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god! Oh my god! Oh, imagine if Surgical Hooks was done. Oh my god, SortOf almost ran into those Banelings on creep and just barely managed to escape and concave. Ho 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 ho. That is not supposed to be how Kiyj brings back this game. This actually might be a bit of a GG moment. He wanted those Banelings to engage, but there simply was too much DPS from SortOf, so Banelings have no chance of engaging. 16 Mutas to 28 Hydras, and those Hydras now have both upgrades running across the map. Kiyj still does not have Baneling speed, and no creep spread either on his side of the map. So these Banelings should, I mean, they should really never hit. SortOf might be respecting his opponent a little bit too much, decides not to directly run up that ramp. He's got 1 Muta for high ground vision, I guess. Funnily enough, it is providing some. And Kiyj is like, well, I guess the Mutas won't be able to help, so my Mutas might as well do something else. And that's pretty appropriate, that's the right, but it sucks. SortOf is up 70 supply and is definitely winning this game. Kiyj put up one hell of a fight. And this game was very odd, very wacky. But SortOf has won it. GG. SortOf continues the dream of qualifying.